Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you my process for making watercolor paintings because a few of you in my last video were asking about my process. So I'll just show what I do. It's not really anything too special, but I'll try to give a few tips along the way and hopefully this will turn out well. Also, before we get into it, let's just look at some of the stuff I'm working with here. So what I'm painting in is just a regular old watercolor sketchbook. It's 140 pound and 7 by 10 inches. So not really anything crazy. I also use masking tape along the edges to, give a nice crisp line to it. So just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then the paint is just basic watercolor paints you can find. I think I got this at Michael's. Yeah, it's not really anything special. I've just been trying to use this up while I can. I feel like there's definitely better watercolor paints you can get out there, but it's been working for me. And then I also have this here to mix my paints, and then we'll be using this more later. And I also have 2 cups for the clean paint and the paint that's gonna be all muddy and nasty. And I also use just some basic brushes. This is my nicest brush. There you can see if you want to get it yourself. I use this to block in like the big shapes and cover large areas with paint. But most of the time I'm going to be using one of these. They're not really anything special, but it gets the job done. So it's just some small basic brushes. You can see pretty small. But yeah, those are mainly what I use. And then I also use a kneaded eraser to lighten my sketch a little bit. So I think that about does it for the materials I'm using. I feel like this is probably a pretty bare bones setup. You don't really have anything special going on here. So yeah, let's get into the sketch so we can start painting. So the first thing I'm trying to do is block out the big shapes in the picture. I'm not looking to like draw a head and then the nose and a neck. Like, I am trying to block out whatever areas of shadow and light there are. So that's kind of how I try to think about it. It makes it a little bit easier to get things right that way. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to be very flowy with how I'm using the pencil, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to, get the fine details and be like really into every little thing. I'm just trying to get the general gist of things here. This stage just has a lot of, testing things out. I'm just trying to make sure that I get everything right before I start painting, because once you start doing that, you can't really go back. So making sure the sketch is good so that the painting is good to go. Then here, one of the most difficult parts for me is trying to get these facial proportions right. So I have to use these guidelines to just try and get it as accurate as I can. But I know it won't be 100%. Right. So this is about as detailed as I'll get. I blocked out most of the details that I'll need to know for the final. So now it's just final touches on the sketch and then clean up a lot of the stuff that needs to go. Okay, so now you can see I have areas blocked out with light and shadow. So like this area, for instance, is all going to be shadow, all light. So I'm just trying to get these bigger overall shapes. And now starting on the actual painting, I like to work from light to dark. And that's kind of the method that most people use with watercolor because, you know, unlike acrylic or oil, you can't lighten after you make it dark. It's kind of an obvious point, but it's just something you really need to keep in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do on this is get a light shadow area going, just so I know where it's supposed to be. And in this painting, I'm seeing it's kind of a gradation of purples here in the shadows to almost this green color. So I want to kind of capture some of that. So just playing around with it. Also, have a rag or like paper towels, just something to clean your brushes on whenever you're getting them all messy. So I've got that sort of purple color. Doesn't look too bad. And then I'll get some of that green color. So whenever I'm putting these layers, I don't want this one to be very heavy with the paint. So I'm adding some more water to it to just like dilute it a little bit. So I was working with the little brush and I'm gonna switch over to the big one because I didn't really like how that was looking. So that just added a little bit of contrast to the image. And then after this, I will be adding more dark tones to the picture. So now after doing the fine details on the face with the small brush, I'm changing over to the larger brush to quickly put in some of that paint on the neck. Then I think I'm going to just go a bit darker with some of these areas. So the painting is just about done. The only thing that's really left to do is put just a little bit more paint in there. And this will just give a little bit more contrast to it. And then we'll be done. All watercolor really is just building up these layers. And even if it doesn't look very good in the beginning, you really just have to stick with it because it starts to come together once you get more shape to it. So I'm just mixing some purple and some of this dark brown color. And this gives a nice dark, almost black, but just slightly purple. It looks a lot better than just using black. It almost makes it look gray, and it just makes the whole picture look a little bit more muddy. So here we have it finished up. I just need to wait for it to dry a little bit, and then I'll be taking this tape off, and then it's all done. Alright, so I'm gonna take the tape off now. We'll see how it looks. I hope this was able to help you with your process for watercolor painting. Maybe there's something that I did here that will be helpful for you. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.